everyone, welcome to a new amazing and wonderful episode of Sunday Blessings. This is Queen from queenchomamedia.com. So I'm with you right now to talk to you about how to prepare for 2019, your best year ever so far, your best year yet. And how you can do this God's way, because there is a way to do it in the world and there is a way to do it God's way. So hope you find this to be very useful. Please do indeed drop me a comment if you're watching live or on the replay. Let me know what you think of this topic. Do you have questions or thoughts on this? So let's dive in. Okay, so the first thing I want to mention about this whole idea of preparing for 2019 God's way is really to, begin, just really start by actually understanding that, let me just go to a scripture in the Bible. Psalm 37 verse 4 talks about this whole idea of, God gives us the desires of our heart, that we should delight ourselves in the Lord. Delight yourselves in the Lord and he shall give you the desires of your heart. So, and even the Amplified Bible talks about the secret petitions of your heart too. So God will give you the desires of your heart, but also the secret petitions of your heart, meaning the things that you don't even ask for, the hidden things deep within your heart. He will give that to you too. So I want to say to you, however, let's just start this first. The first thing we need to do is we need to start with this whole idea of, yes, I want to achieve this, I want this, I want this, I want this, but we need to delight ourselves in the Lord. We need to put God first, because if you do not put God first, you're going to end up with a lot of things, but it may not be God's best for your life. You may have done all this amazing, exciting stuff, but it may not have matched up with God's perfect will. I'm going to just share something with you that maybe I shouldn't really share, but at the same time, I feel led to sort of share this thing. There was someone that was telling me, one day about somebody and what they were like, as in someone, a wonderful person that's in the Lord. They were talking about somebody that, had so much potential and stuff, and that was meant to be this real great person, and that was meant to work with these like designer brands, but this person was busy doing other things. And I was like, wow, that's quite interesting that they've lost the bigger opportunities that God had for them to work with designer brands. But instead, they're like doing all this other stuff that doesn't even match. It's not even as amazing or as fascinating as what they could be ordained to do. So that's what we do sometimes. We have the short change. We have the chicken fees version of what we're meant to do. Now, what I mean by that is, we set this goal like, oh, I want to be, an actress or a model or a dancer or a TV presenter, whatever it is. Or we set this goal that I'm going to have 20,000 fans this year, but maybe you're meant to have 100,000, or whatever it would be. So we set these goals, we have aspirations, we have these dreams, but we sometimes do not make it a thing where we actually decide within ourselves that we're going to really seek God first. So I would start by saying the first thing to do is, like I said, delight yourself in the Lord, seek God first, choose to seek him, because in this digital age where there are so many distractions and there's so many things we could want and desire, some people wanted to do things this year and they didn't do it because they didn't have any grace, they didn't have the anointing, they didn't have God's favor, God's help. They didn't bother to seek God. They did things their way and it just ended up being whatever they wanted. And what we tend to do sometimes is when things don't really work out for us, we tend to, now we need God, now we need to quickly turn to God. But what we need to learn to do is not really leave God to the back burner, but actually put him first. So that's number one. The first thing that I mentioned is we need to learn to delight ourselves in the Lord first. Really get close to him before the year begins. Spend time praying, spend time fasting if possible, and actually discover what's God's perfect will for your life, what's his best for you for 2019. Okay, so the second thing to do, I would encourage you to grab a pen and paper, and you could even do this in God's presence. You can just be like with God, and you can have your pen and your paper, and you can be writing down what you think God is telling you to do. What do you think God wants you to do in 2019? Who does he want you to be in 2019? And obviously, what does he want you to have? So you could even ask God that. You could be like, Lord, what do you see for me in 2019? I would say grab a pen and, a big notebook, big paper, whatever it is that you have. Get 2 A4 sheets of paper, write down what is it that you want me to achieve and do in 2019. And you can start with that as some kind of idea of where you think he wants you to go. He'll give you ideas that you didn't even think about. Maybe he'll say something like, why don't you start writing that book? Or why don't you decide to hire someone so they can help you to finish the book? Because sometimes we start a lot of things, but we don't finish it. And I think that's actually quite sad, to keep on having all these unfinished projects. So we need to learn to be great finishers just as much as we are great starters of things. So getting everything down on paper of what you want to achieve will be key and mandatory. I really want to encourage you to, you know, write down things of like, you know, whatever you think God's telling you to do. Write down things you want to do as well, not just like, oh, what does God want me to do? Of course, that's really important, but what do you think also? Like, use your mind during that time. Brainstorm as well, like you're saying, oh, what do I want to do? What do I want from life? What do I want from 2019? What do I want to see happen in 2019? Amy Porterfield, I don't know if you know who that is, but she is a marketing genius, and she's got a podcast show called Online Marketing Made Easy, which is really, I think her podcast is, to me, the best podcast out there. And one of the things that she says she said that I really loved was that she didn't actually plan this year. She goes that she kind of made an episode talking about how she never planned this year. Normally she plans like every year, but she didn't plan this year. And she said that was actually a mistake, and it didn't really work for her. She said that the year just kind of went however it went. It wasn't actually, she said that last year when she planned and the years before, it went a lot better, but this year was still good, but it wasn't as, you know, she said it just wasn't as like sort of a good idea. So she said she's never going to do that again. So I don't want you to go into 2019 with this like, oh, I'll just, you know, wing it, get through it, whatever, I want you to instead be like, I'm going to work effectively to have a great plan in place. And of course I can, you know, change the plan a little bit if I need to, but I'm going to really have something solid on paper or solid in my notebook or my vision book. You could have a big scrapbook. I mean, make this a big deal. Buy yourself an A4 notebook, one of those big ones, A4 pads, and, you know, really write down your goals, your dreams and aspirations for 2019, and keep writing them down every day until you're really crystal clear in regards to what you're going for. Maybe it's to create, like, maybe I'm going to give you some ideas of things that you might want to achieve next year. So maybe you want to create a new album. Don't just think business, don't just think career, think about your dreams and your goals and your aspirations as well. Think of things like the things that you've always wanted to do since you were a child, or since, you know, for years, but you haven't got around to doing it. So for example, it could be something like learning how to speak a new language. You know, I was just looking at someone on Instagram, and they were talking about how they, you know, have learned to speak different languages because they travel a lot and so on and so forth. And sometimes we want to travel a lot, but we don't speak many languages, or we don't even know how to say hello in, you know, in certain languages. And so it pays to learn things. Like I can say quite a few words. Well, I studied Italian, so I can say quite a lot in Italian. No, I wouldn't sound fluent or anything like that, but I definitely have a lot of words in me. You know, I can count in, you know, like, I don't know, there's just a lot of words or sentences or phrases that I can say in Italian that can kind of get me around Italy. Like, you know, if I wanted to ask, you know, for example, just, you know, if I wanted to say that, you know, like kind of make it clear that I'm English, I can say, you know, inglese. That alone just, you know, that means English. So that means they will at least know that I'm not Italian. Do you know what I mean? As in, I'm not native Italian. So, you know, they just sometimes, and just saying, you know, like for example, hello, how are you, and all those good things. You know, I can say, you know, buongiorno or buonanotte, depending on whether it's good morning, whether it's morning or evening or night or whatever. If it's night, buonanotte. If it's, you know, evening, I mean, obviously evening, night, same thing. But if I want to say good evening, buonasera. If I want to say, you know, just hello in an informal way, ciao. You know, come stai, bene. You know, well, bene is what they would say to me. They'll say fine, and then I would say grazie mille or whatever. So I don't even know if I was saying that correctly. But okay, let me just say that again, just in case someone is watching that's from Italy. So I would say ciao, like ciao, come stai, which means hello, how are you? And then they should say, you know, bene, fine, thank you. Yeah, bene, grazie, you know, yeah. So anyway, I want to encourage you to learn maybe different languages, learn to cook things you've never learned to cook before, improve your diet. How can you improve your diet? How can you improve your health? How could you get fit for, you know, for the new year? Think about your health, think about family goals, think about family aspirations, think about the things that you want to achieve in your business as well, because that's always a good thing. And yeah, just keep thinking on paper, get it all onto paper, because the more ideas you have, you're setting yourself up for success. They say that those who fail to plan plan to fail. And I think that's quite a sad thing, to have so much potential but never achieve it. And I can guarantee that Beyonce doesn't wing it. Like, I can guarantee, you know, Kim Kardashian and her mother, you know, I remember Kris Jenner in her book always talking about how every single, you know, before the new year kicks off, her and Kim will sit down with a big plan of what they're going to achieve the following year and so on and so forth. So we have to sit down. We need to sit down and do the planning work, because that's going to bring us the goals that we want to see manifest. So if you want to see things manifest in your life, I don't think that I would have been on television if I didn't sit down and figure out what channels I actually want to be on. What channels did I want to be on? I had to figure that out. There's no point. People are like so foggy with what they want. They're like, yeah, I want to be on radio. And I'm like, okay, yeah, what radio stations do you want to be on? They're like, I kind of have to think about that. And I'm like, okay, so what TV, like, they're like, oh, I want to be on TV, I want to be on podcast shows. I'm like, okay, tell me some podcast shows you want to be on. I wonder what podcast shows. And that's the reason why we don't achieve our goals, because we're not crystal clear. But the clearer we get, the more it's almost as if like we can touch it, taste it, smell it. We can feel it in our presence. It's almost as if it's in our midst already, and we just need to just walk into those opportunities. So, you know, if somebody wants to receive 10,000 in their business, and they have a plan of what they're going to do with the money, they're probably going to attract that money in a lot more than someone that doesn't have a goal to. Well, they have the goal to receive 10,000, but they don't have a reason why they want it. They don't even know what they want it for. They're very unclear as to why they need it, and they quite frankly couldn't figure out what they're going to do with it, even if it comes, and so on and so forth. So that is that. Okay, so in terms of God's way, you know, how else can you plan for a successful, amazing, brilliant 2019 God's way? Well, most certainly reading his word. You've got, you know, being in the Bible is the best way to find out what he wants for you. The Bible says that if you meditate on the word of God day and night, that you will be like a tree planted by the streams of water, ready to bring forth your fruit in your season, and whatsoever you do you shall prosper. Anything you touch will prosper. Anything you do will prosper, basically. So that's in the book of Psalm 1. So if you know that I want you to know that even the book of Joshua talks about this too, this idea of, you know, basically being in God's word will cause you to prosper, and you cause you to be successful. You'll be successful if you are in God's word day and night. If you meditate on his word, if you chew on the word, if you meditate on the word, if you read the word, if you study the word, you cannot fail, because the Bible promises. It's so funny. Some people want to be successful. Read the Bible. It will make you successful. And one of the things that the Bible will give you that you really need as a fundamental skill to have in life is wisdom. You know, the book of Proverbs is full of so many scriptures around wisdom, and that's what we need a lot of. We need tons of wisdom. So I do want to encourage you to indeed be sure to look at the Psalms for encouragement, but look at the book of Proverbs. Look at Proverbs, because Proverbs is full of wisdom. The scriptures are, you know, flooded with pearls of wisdom and all those good things, and you will just really become a sharper person. And if you want to be successful, you need to be really sharp, because there are so many people that can con you, or that can scam you, or that could take you for granted or take advantage of you, or people that are fake, and you need to be able to see through these people and see through situations and see through circumstances, and that can't happen if you're not smart, if you're not sharp, if you're not paying attention to different things. So it's really a good thing to, thank you for the like, thank you. So it is a really good thing to be somebody that does have that wisdom, because just think about it. How many people think of one person that took you for granted or took advantage of you and you didn't even know? Imagine if you'd been kind of meditating on the word of God, or just reading the Bible from time to time, whether it's once a day for 5 minutes, or even if it was something twice a week. Yeah, because sometimes we can't commit to daily. Some of us can't because we're more beginners, or some of us can't because we've got children or families or whatever it would be. But then some of us can because we've decided to wake up earlier, or some of us can because we decided that we're just going to make it a done deal. It's really important, and so on and so forth. So I would say, however you're going to go about this, make it something that you do turn to. I remember Terry Foy saying that she looks at the Proverbs, the book of Proverbs, once, I think it's meant to be Yeah, every single day. So she looks at a proverb. If it's the 29th of December, she will read the 29th proverb. If it's the 1st of January, she'll read the first proverb. So that's what she does like every month. She said that that's one of the ways that we can get sharper and more wise. The wiser you are, the more you're going to excel in your career, you're going to excel in your business, you're going to excel in everything, in your education. Imagine being so smart in your education because you're reading the Proverbs, you're reading the Bible and just getting ideas, and maybe God will be like, give you these words that will pop up when you're doing your work, and he'll remind you of things. It could even be things like, don't be around fools. There's a scripture there's different parts in the Bible where it talks about don't be around fools, and maybe if you just started to associate yourself with people that are more wise, and I'm not talking about fools in terms of they're not intelligent book-wise, I'm talking about foolish behavior. Like if they act foolish in terms of their behavior, why would you want to be around people like that are going to take you down a pit when you can be around people that push you higher? Do you think that people look at Meghan, look at Meghan Markle. She changed her life so that she can have a better quality of life. She decided to let go of a lot, and most of what she had was good. But just think of all the sacrifices that she had to make to become a celebrity. And then think of all the sacrifices that she made to become a princess. To become the Duchess of Sussex was a big commitment. And many of us want the goodies, but we don't want to put in the work that matches the good things that we want. If you want to have a book at the end of 2019, you're going to have to be writing a chapter, every month for 12 months. That will get you to having a book at the end of the year. If every single month you write one chapter, at the end of the year, 2019, you'll have a book. But what are you spending your time doing instead? If you're spending your time watching 7 hours of television, or spending your time looking at every live stream that pops up, I'm not saying don't watch live streams, but don't watch all of them. Obviously there are days to binge watch. There are even moments to sit down and be like, I need to watch 2 live streams back to back. But don't just sit there having an addiction when you can actually decide to be like, you know what, I'm going to take control over my life and use my time more profoundly and more effectively. By the way, if you're doing it as mindset work to improve yourself, that's obviously good. But when I mean addiction, I mean sometimes we create these habits that we don't need to have. It's not something that we're struggling with. It's more of just laziness and us not taking ownership of ourselves and our lives, and we're not taking ownership of our time, and we don't have anything really scheduled into our calendars and diaries and so on and so forth. That's why we just do whatever. But if we have things scheduled into our calendars, diaries, and we're reminding ourselves of what we want to achieve, we're going to really be smart enough to focus on those important things, along with having fun as well. So another thing I think that we should think about when it comes to achieving amazing things in God's way is to have a word or a theme for the year. There are different things. The Bible talks about all these different things that God, all these different words in the Bible that kind of create this feeling that God is, there's different key words. Let me just give you an example of what I'm talking about. There's faith. Faith is one of the words in the Bible. There's words like freedom, words like healing, words like deliverance. There are all these positive words that are sprinkled through the Bible. Words like victory, words like success, words like, try and choose a word or a theme for the year. So it could be it could be something like, this is my year of favor. This is my year of victory. This is my year of success. This is my year for consistent progress. This is my year for divine opportunities. This is my year of constant healing. This is my year of miracles and abundance. Try and think of words or themes. Hi Angela, thanks for jumping on. Try and think of a word for the year or a theme for the year. So it could be, I remember Joel Austin saying that the whole of the decade, he labeled it as I think it's Ephesians 3:20 decade, basically meaning that God will do exceedingly abundantly above all we dare ask or think or imagine according to his power that works within us. This is going to be a decade of him doing far and beyond what we could ever imagine and expect, and all of those good things. So have you got, I've sometimes said things like, oh, this is my year of freedom. I think that this year's meant to have been my year of freedom. So, and maybe it's your year of miracles, like I said, miracles and abundance. And if you want that to be your year, then it means you need to be confessing it throughout the year. Not just, oh, you confess it once, oh, this is my year of miracles and abundance, and then that's it. You've got to be confessing it over and over. And then you've got to pray, Lord, show me miracles and abundance, because this is my year of miracles and abundance. But what I really think is even better to do is to pay attention for the word that God gives you, or the theme he gives you over your year, because I believe God will give it to you, and he'll let you know what that is if you're looking out for it, listening out for it, You know, it could be a dream he gives you, and so on and so forth. Okay, so the next thing that I believe God would want us to do to prepare for 2019 in a very profound way is definitely affirmations, making sure we're confessing, like what I just said, we need to be confessing good things. We need to be confessing the things we want to see happen, we desire to see happen, and be very consistent with confession, and stop speaking negative as well, because as much as I'm a positive person, I can also be very negative. And I don't mean very, very negative, but what I mean is I can sometimes moan or complain, or I can sometimes say, oh, nothing ever good happens, or whatever it is. I'm not saying I do this all the time, but we are human beings. We can't be positive 24/7. We're not happy 24/7. We're not clowns. We are real people with human emotions. We go through happiness, we go through anger, sadness, up, down. Most of us are probably quite stable. I'm stable, right? Most of us are stable. But what I mean is we still have emotions. We still, 1 minute we're happy, the next minute we're annoyed, the next minute, you know, because things are happening constantly. You receive a good email, you're happy. You receive a not so good email, you're like, you know. So what I'm saying to you is we need to be constantly like feeding positive. We need to be constantly confessing good things despite what happens. And we need to believe for good things. And no matter what happens throughout the year, we need to always believe that God is turning everything around for our good. He's working everything out for our good. If we don't see things that way, we're always going to be annoyed and frustrated by every little thing that happens. And then finally, one of the things that we should do is expect God to give us growth. Expect him to give us increase. Expect him to give us blessings, miracles, and favor, and all of those good things. Because let me tell you something. If you're not growing, if we don't grow, what are we actually doing? If we're not growing, that is a sad thing. We need to grow. We need evidence of growth. Even if you grow your Instagram by 2 fans, that means you grew. Now, sometimes people grow in reverse. They go backwards. There are moments where you go backwards. That's part of life. You can't always go forwards. But you shouldn't constantly be going backwards. You should, or sometimes, yes, you go backwards, but you should go far forward as well. Yes, there are going to be moments where you sort of go backwards, but it shouldn't be. You should be growing. You should be moving forwards. If you have a couple of days where you go backwards a little bit in your career or whatever it would be, that's normal and fine. Some people get sacked. That's how they go backwards. Some people, 1 minute they're earning 10k, then they start going to 8k, and they're like, "What's going on?" That's normal. But you shouldn't just stay there going backwards and backwards and backwards and backwards and backwards. You should be like, okay, I went a bit backwards, but now I've gone so far forwards. So 2019, like if you had 17,000 fans on Instagram, you should be now heading towards 20k or even 30k. That we should be aiming for growth, and we should be praying for growth. Growth could be growth in your family. Maybe you have 1 child, now you want 2. It could be that you buy a bigger house, a bigger car, whatever it would be for you. Figure out where you want to grow and write those things down and pray for them. So that's all I want to cover. I don't want my battery to run out, so I'm going to just stop here. I'm probably going to do another training on this, or another Sunday Blessings on this, and go a little bit further and deeper with this message. Thanks for watching, lovely people, and I'll see you in the next message. So I love you all. Thank you so much. And by the way, if you're interested in joining me for my 3-day intensive, which is a PR and media intensive, do indeed look out for it. It's on my page. I'm not going to post the link here because I'm trying to sort of separate what I do with this Sunday Blessings show. I don't really want to pitch my things on it, but this is just because my program is coming up in a couple of days. So I thought to just throw it in, just to let you know there is a 3-day intensive if you wanted to map out a PR and media plan for your business, and just to, so many women want to be on television and on radio, in newspapers and magazines and so on and so forth, but I think you need to actually do what successful people do, which is they sit down and they make a plan, and they actually learn from experts that are really, really professional in this field, and they learn, how can I do this, by being taught. And so that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be teaching you how to make it happen, how to make the media interviews happen, the pitching, how to use social media to attract media interviews, how to, get your media centrals together, how to, position your brand for amazing publicity in 2019, how to just always be booked to be in the media, like how to always shine in, be featured in magazines, be on podcast shows, you name it. Some of you are having this success already, but there are new levels. There's always a new level. And if you want to go to that new level, you have to remember that for every new level, there is also a new devil. And so that means if you're not prepared for that level, imagine you going on Oprah and you don't even know what to say. You're just like, oh, and you might think, oh, I'll be fine. But have you watched do you know what it's like to be around all the big audience? Do you understand what it's like to be in front of 2,000 people or 100 people or 500 people? Many of you are like, oh, I could just go on a TV show like that. But have you actually been on a TV show to know what it's like to have all those lights in front of you, to have the presenter speaking to you here, and then to have maybe a critic on your side, the other side, where they're against your industry, and then, you know, the presenter's like kind of half on your side, half not. So it's not as if they choose to be on your side or not, but sometimes you might feel that's how they are. You're like, oh, are you on my side or not? And then you've got the critic on your side, and they're like, kind of like, you know, giving you a hard time as well. So be media trained. Don't just wing it. Don't just like, oh, I'll try and figure this out. Be trained by deciding to jump on that 3-day intensive. The link is on my page. Just scroll through. I think it's the post before this or 2 posts before this. You'll see it. Thank you. Love you all. God bless. See you all in the next Sunday Blessings, and see you on my next live stream. This is Queen Choma from queenchomamedia.com. Hope you found this to be useful. Do drop me a comment. Let me know if you're watching on the replay. Did you find this to be useful? Let me know. Bye.